Okay, so welcome back to Think Differently. I don't know about you guys, but I was missing it last week. Um, we usually do our networking meetings on Thursday, the fourth Thursday of the month. So it's the same time. But I've gotten so used to these already. We've only been doing them for about a month and a half. No, maybe I think we've been doing them 2 months now. But I'm already used to them. So I was really missing them last week. So thank you for coming back. So today we're talking about mindset, and how do I want to kick this off? Let me just do a quick intro for anyone who does not know me. My name is Laura Livingston. I'm a business and mindset coach, and I'm really passionate about working with people who are passionate about what they do. And you know what? Honestly, I'm also really passionate about working with people who want to love what they're doing or want to love their business more. So many times my clients, when they come to me at first, they like the work itself, but they don't love the way they run their business, or they think they could love it more, or life just, business just feels hard. And I really want to normalize that, because I, as much as I'm all about injecting ease and flow into your business, that doesn't mean that we're going to that you can remove all hardships of running a business. Business is still business. It's just like life is still life, right? Life's going to life while we do it. Business is going to business. But finding ways that you get out of your own way so that you can make it easier on yourself, finding ways that your business can work for you in a more streamlined, more efficient, more sustainable way in terms of the actions that you're taking. Keep planting seeds over time to create clients, as an example, or the actions that you and your team are taking, create an opportunity for the, how do I say this? The actions that your team and you are taking to run the business get easier and easier to just stick on repeat all the time and know where the problems are to solve, as opposed to just having to recreate the wheel all the time. And so just going to click one. I'm having a little weird thing. Okay. And so all that is to say, as a business, I am both a business coach. I have, 18 or more years of consulting experience before I started this business, where I was mostly coaching. Mostly consulting to big companies doing big change. And then now 7 years in this business, coaching mostly entrepreneurs. I actually do still coach some executives, but coaching entrepreneurs to affect change in their businesses. I always approach things from both the business side of things, being very strategic, making things sustainable, scalable, realistic, especially for small business owners with small teams. I think scrappy is part of the strategy. Most of my clients are running lean businesses, and highly profitable businesses, and those two things can coexist together. And so I always approach things from both the business, the strategy, the sort of practical elements of running your business side of things, as well as the mindset, human behavior, psychology, how we just make stuff harder than it needs to be, how we get in our own way, right? Imposter syndrome, all those things. I always approach my work and with my clients, and also these Think Differently events, I approach them from both perspectives. Today is mostly about mindset, though. So I have a hard time separating the two. You're still going to hear me go a little to here's a little strategy example, but I'm going to mostly stay in mindset today, which is kind of rare for me. So I just feel the need to say that out loud. And we'll see, because I just can't help myself because I live in the both. And then a couple of little things. So with today, those of you who are live, thank you for being here. I want to encourage people to join me live when it makes sense. And so I'm doing something that I haven't done in 3 years, which is I'm giving away a free mini coaching session. So I used to just give these away completely all the time. And then a long time ago, I took them back and said, I'm not offering them at all. And I always just sort of offer them when I have the capability, or the capacity, I should say, in my time, in my schedule, and when I can. And so what I'm doing for the next month, we'll see, I might do it 2 months in a row, is I'm offering a free mini session. Usually it's one per person. So if you've had one before, usually I say you can only have the one. Thank you and sorry, and that's my boundary. But in this case, I'm wanting to create an exception to my rule. So if you've had one before, you can still enter to win. That's my quick and dirty. So for the rest of the month, this is our first Think Differently. We have 3 or 4 this month. For the rest of the month, if you join live, all you have to do is just please put something in the chat. You can just say hi, but put something in the chat. That's how my team and I can track it and like use it so that I don't have to remember who joins. But if you just put one comment in the chat, you'll be entered to win that free session. And then I'll draw the names at the end of the month. And then if you come more than once, you'll be entered more than once, right? So your odds go up if you come to all of them. So Megan says, woohoo. Yes, woohoo. I honestly love a good free session. The very first Think Differently that I did was all about free offers, not just free sessions, but it's a strategy that not only has helped me create clients and run my business in a way that feels really good to me. I mean, it freaking works. Free stuff works. But it's also just the way that I like to be. I'm the one-on-one coach. I would rather just sit down and coach you than tell you how I coach you, right? So this is much more fun. This is a really good aligned strategy for me. And I'll probably never let it go, but it shifts and changes. And this is this month's, or this, I should say this quarter's iteration of my free sessions. So make sure you say something in the comments and I'll enter you to win. And I think that's all. Okay. So mindset, I think the title was, actually I have it right here. So it's kind of like a negative title, but I felt the need to put it this way because I think there's a lot of myths out there. So the title for today is 3 beliefs about mindset work that actually make your mindset work less effective. So we can kind of say we're talking today about like your mindset about your mindset. But what I really want to do today is just dispel a few myths about, I'm sorry, my camera is doing something weird. Let me just fix something really fast. Okay, let's see if that fixes it. Let me know how the tech is, ladies who are live, the live ladies. Let me know if it's slow or aligned or something. We've got a couple. Okay, good, thanks. Yeah, it just looked a little slow. All right, so mindset work, what is it? How do you not do it, right? We are gonna, of course, talk about how to do it properly. But I think mindset is just something that, I don't know, when I talk to somebody who's not in the online space or somebody who's not a small business owner, or frankly, somebody who's never had therapy before, if I say, like, I don't really usually say I'm a mindset coach. I actually usually say I'm a leadership coach because I just feel like that translates more broadly. But I think a lot of people just sort of have their own definitions of mindsets. So I'm going to just tell you my own definition. We can call it like it is. This is not really what I'm not really trying to tell you what mindset is today, but I think mindset work is a word that gets thrown around by a lot of us coaches. And so I just want to say, for me and for the purpose of this conversation, if you define it differently, I think it's important that I just quickly define it right here. So if you're not aligned to my definition, you don't have to listen to me any further. But for me, mindset work is managing your mind, managing and processing your thoughts and your feelings, so that they don't, because I'm a very big believer in, I'm a psychology major. I have a master's degree in applied behavioral science, which just means all I've done academically and in my entire career is study and apply human behavior to real life and real business situations. And Carl Jung, who's like one of the godfathers of like modern psychology, basically said, if you oh my God, how does it start? Oh my God, I've totally lost my train of thought that I can't even start it. Anyway, it's basically about how your thoughts create your reality. And that if you don't recognize that, your thoughts will create reality and you will call it fate. So you're thinking that you're a victim to your circumstance, when in reality, your thoughts create your actions. And this is scientifically proven. And I'm not going to talk about like manifestation type stuff today. This is really like psychology, science, brain science, that your thoughts create your reality at the end, because what happens in the middle is your thoughts affect your behaviors. And so it's not just that you can't see possibility, it's that too. If you're looking at something through a limiting belief or through a lens of what I always like to ask my clients, like what's actually true here. But your thoughts will direct there we go. There's the quote. Your thoughts will direct your life and you will call it fate. And so what mindset work is recognizing that and going, okay, well, we don't have to be victims to our crazy brains. Thank you, brain. Love you, brain. But you're a little bit Cooksville too. We can just work with our brains, but also not let our brains run the show. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And so working with your brain, training your brain, letting your feelings and thoughts be processed effectively so that they don't run your life. And then you call it fate. And then you're just subconsciously, unconsciously acting without awareness, without intention, without realizing the impact that you're creating on your life, on other people, on your business. And so the way that I like to look at it is we are both, most people actively do mindset work by hiring a coach. This is a minimum, it's probably more than 50% of my job. It's a lot of my job is to just process through people's thoughts with them around the business, around their confidence, around all of the things that are related to sales and marketing and putting yourself out there. Running a business is not a small thing, and it is not for everyone, and it is not for the faint of heart. It requires a lot of courage. And so bringing that up and out and processing the crazy, fearful, I don't even want to say crazy, but like the fearful thoughts that come up around that is really, really important to not just your sanity, but to your effectiveness as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a practitioner of whatever it is that you do. And so most of the time it comes down to processing it with someone. Same thing as going to talk therapy. Any kind of coach will help you to process, whether that's verbally or a lot of my clients message me in between sessions, and we do that. We process that like literally with our hands, right? We process that. So it's processing it, generally speaking, with someone else. And then I like to see mindset work as a daily practice that we execute for ourselves, just like taking a walk or doing some exercise or eating vegetables, that supports us in managing our mind in the long run. Let's see if there's something else I wanted to say about that. Yeah, and so I think the other piece that I wanted to say is we're generally looking at managing your mind, training your brain, understanding, let me say it differently. We're generally looking at two things. One is, what are the thoughts that are directing your life right now and what's not serving you, right? So if you're losing confidence in something, because like a lot of my clients who've come to me this year lost a lot of confidence in their work last year. Last year was a pretty rough year for a lot of businesses, and I think it's bled into this year, although I still feel like everything is trending up and better, and I'm seeing so much more really good evidence of small businesses growing and moving out of that dip. But that dip with a business has created a lot of dips in confidence, right? For those of us business owners, I feel that it happened to me as well. And so we're processing that, right? Dealing with the thought processes that we have that might be keeping us from taking a little bit of a risk, or even just putting ourselves out there again and to keep going, right? It takes bravery to keep going. But it's also about, what do you want? So it's about dealing with the stuff you don't want that's going on in your mind that might be directing your fate, right? Or directing your life. And then it's also about creating what you do want. Because if you can get down with the brain science and go look it up, there's real data and science to back this up, that what's going on in here creates those actions, and then those actions create your reality. If you can get down with that, then it's not just that we want to like fix our problems and fix our limiting beliefs, which we can talk about, but it's also, well, what do we want to believe? And what do we want to create? And who do I need to be? And what do I need to believe to create the thing that I want to create? And so that's how I see mindset work. And there's all kinds of ways to do that, right? The other example, that one example, I just want to root it into like a real life example for a second. If you were under a rock and not watching the Olympics, do a little Google search on my friend Simone Biles. I'm a huge fan of hers. I was a gymnast when I was a kid, and she's just got such a great story. And so I've been obsessed with her, and I'm even more obsessed with her now after this summer's Olympics. But essentially, what she did, she called this her comeback, right? But like that girl already accomplished everything and more that she ever wanted to accomplish before this year's Olympics. But for her, this was a comeback. For her, she lost her confidence. For her, she had a lot of challenges 4 years ago in the Olympics. And so she was doing both of those things. She had also had some traumas that she experienced right before the last Olympics. And so that really obviously messed with her, right? I think it's finally mindset in a broader sense is getting more. She's done so much for this field, just in her sharing her experience so authentically and so vulnerably. But so she had to, in order to come back and do what she did in the Olympics, she had to do 2 things. One, she's very honest and open that she went into therapy. She really dove into her trauma and how that impacted her and all the pressure that she experienced in her role, so that the limiting beliefs and the traumas that happened to her were processed healthily, processed effectively, so that her body and her brain weren't holding on to that any more than you already would. And then so that it's not holding her back, right? So we went into the past, right? We dealt with that stuff. But then she also did so much work around what she wanted to do, who she wanted to be, who she needed to be to do what she wanted to do, the beliefs in herself that she needed to be able to go out and do the crazy stuff that she does. She had to be completely sold on her own capabilities. And she's doing stuff that other people can't do. Big time courage, right? And so she was really working on her mindset from a more positive aspect of, how do I step into this new level of myself so that I can do what I want to do, what I know I have the potential to do, what I'm born to do, frankly. And they have some really, if you're looking for some of these, they have some really precious videos online of her, right? And a couple of the other gymnasts right before they would go out to their apparatus, like if they're like, chalking their hands or preparing, waiting for the other gymnast to get off before they go on the floor. And you can see them doing their self-talk, and they're saying stuff like, you've got this. Okay, you're the best. Okay, whatever. Like they're saying all these positive things to themselves because they know that that's what they've trained their brain to do, that is what helps their whole body, right? Not just their brain, to prepare for competition. And so these are the other things that we're doing when we're talking about mindset work. Okay, that's enough of that. Now, what in the world are my 3 things? So these are very simple. I'm just going to check the chat before I keep going. And if you have questions, please ask. And if you have questions and you're watching the recording, just hit reply to the email. So I'll be sending out a recording of this. And also, ladies, if you can't make it for the whole time, you'll get a copy of the recording. But if you're watching the recording as well, so if you're live, please ask questions as we go. Please share insights. Let me know what's resonating. Let me know what doesn't. Let me know what's going on in your brain, to the extent you're comfortable. And then also, if you're watching the replay, just hit reply to the email. It goes straight to my personal inbox. Nobody else sees that. And I will answer your question or add it to another live or something. Okay, you're welcome. Putting myself out there is such a challenge for me. My mindset around speaking in front of others flips back and forth between semi-confident and not at all confident. 100%. 100%. And we're going to talk about this today, but I think like part of the cheat codes for that is both working with your belief systems around that confidence and doing your own personal work around that. And then some of it is honestly just familiarity, and to continue, do whatever you need to do to let yourself keep putting yourself out there, however freaking messy that feels, because that action paired with the mindset work that you're doing is, for me, and I'm skipping ahead to number 3, but that for me is the magic, is how do you merge both the, okay, I need to think about and process these thought processes, these thoughts that I'm having, because they're not serving me, right? Like if you're saying to yourself, like, oh, I can't do this, nobody's going to hire me, who wants to listen to what I have to say, right? Those are the kinds of things we generally say when we're speaking or putting content out or going to networking meetings, right? So I need to look at and work through those thought processes, but also I just need to keep putting myself out there, because I just keep building evidence that I can do this and that it's not so bad, and maybe I'm pretty good at this, right? Those things go together. That's how we create change and create habits. So beliefs about mindset work that actually make your mindset work less effective. These are three things these are not the only three things. But these are three things that I've been seeing online that I just want to be an advocate for what mindset work actually is, what it actually does. There's just a lot of noise out there, and I want to sort of correct some myths that I'm seeing out there. So hopefully this is helpful. And with that, I just want to say, I think a lot of the myths that I'm seeing out there are not wrong. I think it's more like our job and your job as you're listening to this, our job, if we're consuming information from anyone, as you're consuming this information from my brain, is to take it and decide what to apply and what not to apply. Take and decide what works for you and leave the rest. And I think so much advice, particularly in other people's marketing, in my own marketing, right? We only have this much space to share your wisdom, right? You're going to miss the nuance. You're going to miss the detail underneath some sort of, tried and true advice. And that's why this is long form content, because I can talk about the nuance. But our job always is, and I'm always going to ask you if you're at these Think Differently's, the job is always to say what makes sense for me and for my business at this season that we're in right now, and take what works and leave the rest. And that's your job when we're consuming as well, because the job is what applies to me, what's the yes, and what's the, okay, yeah, but it's also going to be like this for me, right? So how do I, not just do I apply it, but then if I do apply it, how do I apply it, and where specifically in my business do I apply this so that it actually serves me? Because taking a great strategy, whether that's a business strategy or some sort of mindset strategy or any kind of like wisdom out there, can be both great and bad, depending on whether it actually makes sense for your business. So it's about the fit. Great, silly example, but like I'm allergic to soy. Soy is healthy, right? So people out there could be talking about nutrition. You need to eat soy, it's plant-based protein, blah, 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 right? They're not wrong. And it's completely bad for me. So I need to know how to apply it for my life, my body, right? Okay, so number one is, I don't know what to call this. Number one is positivity overload. Let's call it that. Number one is, oh, mindset work. Yeah, I need to have a positive mindset. So if I have any feelings or any thoughts that are anything less than positive and supportive and high vibe, then I better get my shit together because I'm in trouble. And now I'm going to like create, right? Because I just said you're going to create your own fate, right? So if I have a feeling, if I have a feeling or a thought that's a worry, right? So often I think people misunderstand what having a positive mindset is, and what mindset work is really intended to do and how to use it. And so we sometimes think that, well, if that's the case, I cannot have any stressful, worryful thoughts. I cannot have bad feelings. I cannot grieve. I cannot be mad at someone. I can't it must not be their fault, right? And then as us women, we go, okay, well then clearly it's my fault. So I have to do all this and take it on myself because I can't be mad at someone else because that's not positive. That's negative. And I'm sure they're doing the best they can. And so I'm not allowed to have my feelings. Right? So some people call this toxic positivity. I think it's broader than that. I don't think it's just toxic positivity, but I think when we ask ourselves to be anything other than what we are in truth, right? We are fighting against reality, to use Eckhart Tolle's language, like suffering, the definition of suffering is fighting against reality, not accepting reality, right? When someone passes away suddenly, we do not accept reality. It takes us oftentimes a very long time to accept reality. The answer isn't, okay, we had a death in the family this week. When someone passes away, you just need to like deal with it and let it be reality. Like, obviously that's not the answer, right? We're going to have feelings. We have to process those feelings. We have to cry. We have to grieve. We have to talk to each other. We have to all the things, right? And I find that while there's a lot of, I think, information out in the world these days about how to feel your feelings and that that's important and you need to take care of yourself and all of those things, I find there are still, this plays out oftentimes more in sneaky kind of self-sabotaging ways. I especially see this with my clients who are women, because we culturally and historically have sort of taken on all the caretaking for everyone else. And so we might be expected culturally that we have feelings and things, but not to burden someone else with them, right? And so sometimes that can play out in not following up on a sales opportunity because you don't want to upset someone else, right? It can come out in these really kind of sinister, sneaky ways where you're like, oh, I'm just being supportive of the other person. I'm just being positive. I'm sure if they want to work with me, they'll just reach out to me, right? And this isn't to say that you need to like follow up and bombard your sales prospects every single day. That's a topic for another day. But assuming that you're just reaching back out to people, right? As an example, this is a great place where I see it pop up with my clients. Thinking that it's not okay to have feelings or to express something to someone is where we kind of get those sneaky moments of toxic positivity or holding something that doesn't really need to be ours to hold. Okay, I have a couple of examples, but let me know if this is making sense. Yeah, and so sometimes this is very future focused. Okay, if I'm worried about something, I'm worried that I made an offer to a client, a potential client on Friday, and I'm worried that they're not going to actually sign their contract and pay their invoice, right? So I'm worried about that. And I just make myself move on to do something else, which means then that if they are a little bit late in paying or something, that I'm not following up, right? As an example, that's one of my examples that I've been hearing a lot lately. Yeah, and then obviously this one gets kind of like a volcano that eventually has to spew. Like it's going to go somewhere. Something you will have an outlet for those. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine is a great one for toxic positive. Oh, it's fine. It's fine, right? It's not fine. And so often when we just freaking say that it's not fine, we feel better 10 minutes later. But we aren't taught how to process our feelings. Yeah, I had a client this morning who said, I'm really stressed out. I feel a lot of pressure. There's these things going on in the business. And I actually feel like my body is like asking me to cry and I can't cry. And so even though we had very practical things to talk about, that's where we started today. Because she couldn't do anything else, right? It's one of those like, it's going to direct your fate if you bottle it up anyway. So you may as well deal with it. Yeah. The other way that I see this playing out is, let's say you have a limiting belief around money. And so you decide that you're going to create an affirmation for yourself about, I am a millionaire. I see this a lot. Like you're in scarcity and you're freaking out about money. And so you create this affirmation for yourself to like force it out of you, I guess. That's not how you change your belief systems. And there's a lot of work out there that says that that's how you change your belief systems, but it doesn't work because quick brain science, your subconscious mind reacts to reality and the truth of the situation, not to exactly what you tell it or say, right? So in other words, it's going to react to your feelings and your energy around it. So I can keep telling it, that I'm a millionaire or a billionaire, but it knows that I don't feel that because I have a limiting belief that I'm in scarcity. And so the subconscious mind, it just like, it's like a code of programming that didn't even actually get entered, right? Like it just doesn't do anything. I do love a good affirmation after you've felt your feelings, after you've worked on a belief system, after you've identified exactly what you need to work on and what you want to believe instead, and something that you can get down with. I have one sitting on my computer right now as we speak that I love because I believe it, but it just helps me to reinforce it. Subconscious mind is like a obedient puppy in that way. Like I'm just telling it. My affirmation. Mine is everything is working. You're welcome to steal it. Everything's working. Everything's working. Everything's always working. Everything's working, right? Doesn't matter what's happening. I just see that all the time. But that's because I did my work first. Back when I didn't think that things were working. It's because I did my work first. And then I can really sit with and keep adding in what I do want, which is everything is working, right? Okay. I'm going to check this question and then I'm going to move on to number 2. Sometimes, most times, saying lots of bad words helps. Amen. Absolutely. And there's so many things like what I don't have in scope for today's conversation is like, how do you get those feelings out? We can talk about that another day, like going for a walk, shaking your body, singing, dancing, like meditation if you're not in anxiety mode, you know, journaling, processing, talking to yourself, talking to a friend, hugging somebody, right? Just to throw those out, saying a bunch of bad words, yelling and screaming into a pillow is fantastic. Petting the neighbor's cat. I always go pet the neighbor's cat when I need a little something because I don't have a cat at the moment. And so all of the things are true, right? All of the things help. Find your thing. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2 is frankly the exact opposite of this. So number 2 is, oh yeah, I believe in mindset work so much that I'm going to go all the way into mindset work and I'm going to find all the sources of all my problems and all my childhood traumas. And I'm going to see why I have a money problem and I'm going to see blah, blah, blah. And I better just work that stuff to death. Again, I'm going way extreme. Of course, please deal with your childhood traumas. Of course, please go to therapy. Of course, feel your feelings, right? I just said that in number 1. But point being, when we flip to the other extreme, and most of us have tendencies towards one or the other. So just knowing that about yourself, right? We want both. Because when we are in overanalyzing mode, and this is actually where I can really go wrong. I would say 4 or 5 years ago, this was my go-to. And even now still, if I have something going on in the business that I want to avoid, I'll be like, oh, you know what? Let me just show you. This is my journal. Because I live in Honduras. I love to buy our notebooks at the grocery store because they're all so cute. This is my journal. This thing has made me a lot of money. This thing has solved 90% of my anxiety. This has done so much for me. But if I have a business problem that I don't want to deal with, I'm like, oh, I need to do some writing in here. I got some stuff to do. And I love sitting down and writing out my thoughts, and not to say that I don't need to do that too. But I might just need to get on the phone with the person that I'm wanting to avoid or do the thing that I'm wanting to avoid and just do the thing, right? And knowing that about myself helps me go, hold on, I really want to think I have a mindset thing here. Let me just see, is that true? And maybe it's both. But again, skipping ahead to number 3, the true magic is doing the mindset work and pairing it with an action. So that I can just do the work to say, I know that I can feel safe in taking this scary action, for example. What did I want to say about this one? Yeah, so this one's like looking for problems. The source of everything is in your mindset, right? So just slap an affirmation on it, right? That kind of, I guess, blends the two. It's 100% past focused too, right? All my problems are the source of like, it's my parents' fault. And it's definitely like, I like to blame like my childhood because, I mean, not my childhood, my high school, because I went to a very pressury high school, private school. And that's like the most pressure I've ever been in my life. Never mind corporate. Corporate was nothing compared to that. And so I like to blame that, right? So let me just think about like Mr. So-and-so who said blah, blah to me, right? And again, I have processed that. I have gone to therapy. I've done my own work around that. And so 9 times out of 10 for me, it's like, oh yeah, there's that thing coming up again. Great. What do I want to believe now? And where am I going now? And what action do I need to take to be the person that I want to be? And that's not going too far into not feeling the feelings, because I felt those feelings. I did the thing. I got it. We know, right? I'm still not going to bottle it up, but it might be 20 minutes of journaling and then taking that action, as opposed to, 3 coaching sessions, for example. Looking for problems as a source of everything, overanalyzing. Yeah. So here's the middle ground, right? If number 1 is not letting yourself feel the feelings because you need to be positive and high vibe. And then number 2 is the opposite. We're looking for problems because that's how we can feel better. Or we just know that like therapy works, right? We just know coaching works. We know mindset work works. We know energy work works, all these things, right? It's just diving too far down into that rabbit hole without also pairing it with action. Again, back to that piece. And so where I like to kind of fall into this middle ground, like my general definition and guiding principle for myself and for my clients is this: you get to feel, you must feel your feelings. They're going to come out somewhere anyway, right? Feel your feelings. And they are not driving the bus. They are not the CEO of your business, right? My worrisome feelings do not get to make strategic decisions in my business. They aren't qualified. They're not qualified. And so when they're up, that is not a time for me to make a good decision in my business, right? Knowing that, right? Knowing which part of you, one of the things I always like to recommend my clients do is, we wear so many hats, and we have, a lot of times we're like execution person, right? You're scheduling the social media post, right? But you're also the person at the high level, the CEO, setting the strategy and thinking like, well, what is our differentiator and what are we even marketing, right? When you have both, sometimes our brains get screwy around like, so it's like, which job are you right now? Who are you right now? Are you the CEO right now? Or are you a little kid that's worried and scared? Or are you just the social media scheduler, right? So I always say, like, when I'm the social media scheduler, or when I'm the bookkeeper, that's my favorite one. When I'm the bookkeeper, now is not the time to make business decisions. I'm just bookkeeping. Then I can go back and look at the numbers, big picture, and then I'm the CEO again, right? Because if I'm just the bookkeeper and I'm just executing, I'm annoyed with the CEO who told me to do this task that I don't really want to do. Right. And then I can come up with I'm the boss, I can do whatever I want. So I can come up with a really good reason why I don't need to do it. Okay. So feeling the feelings, we're not going to be toxic about it. We're going to let ourselves be in the moment what we are within reason. Please, of course, like, this is business related, but like, there's moments where, it is not safe to feel your feelings and you need to deal with something directly in front of you. That's out of scope for today's conversation. But of course, there's exceptions to this. But we're going to feel our feelings. We're going to have not just coaching and therapy and someone else, a friend, a partner, et cetera, to help you process through things. But we're also going to create a daily practice, whatever that is for you, to help you manage your mind. I'm going to tell a quick story, and then I'm going to tell you number 3. Which I've mostly been telling you this whole time. I put an email out last week about this because I just think and it was so funny because I was like, of course, this happened when I needed to have something to write about. And I did. As I said, I write in my journal almost every single day. It's not the only mindset practice that I have, but it's one of my favorites. And it's frankly my biggest go-to this year, especially. And, I've been changing my schedule around. And so I moved my time block for mindset work, and I kept missing it. And so I didn't do much of it. Was it last week or the week before? I can't remember. I didn't do much, which is like so rare for me. And then I like woke up in the middle of the night catastrophizing and freaking out and having thoughts of, my family is dying and these things are happening and there's crime next door when there's not, and all this crazy stuff, right? And look, if you have anxiety, you probably deal with this on a regular basis. I have been there. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is kind of like I had been taking this vitamin every day and I wasn't like, I know this, right? But we want to pretend like, oh, these little things don't really matter. If I miss the vitamin for one day, it doesn't really matter, right? It does. It doesn't really matter. It's just one day, right? And if all you do is skip one day, it's not a big deal. But then the one day became 2 or 3 and I was all jacked up in my schedule. And so I kept moving it around and going like, it's fine, I'll get to it. And it is fine and it is okay. And luckily I'm so good at this that in the middle of the night, I was like, okay, I know what's happening. And so I wasn't freaking out that I was freaking out. I was just regular freaking out. I know what to do about it. But all that is to say, these tiny daily mindset pieces, whatever action you want to take, whatever practice you want to implement in your business, in your life, it really freaking works like a vitamin. So much so that when I stopped doing it for a few days, I noticed the difference. So I'm like, mindset work works. It just does. I've been saying that for years. I've been a believer in that for years, but I think it's because it's so simple and it's a small action that we think it doesn't matter. But I want to just say something that someone said to me many, many years ago now that I still say is everything is cumulative, right? Like it all counts. All the days that I did it counts, so that even though I had a day where I was freaking out, and again, we're not going to get to a point where we don't freak out. We're not going to get to a point where we don't have weird thoughts and feelings. And that's just always going to be the case. The point is not to eliminate them. The point is knowing that you can handle it. That's really it. So it didn't ruin my whole day. It just ruined an hour, right? Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So my number 3, so number 1 is not feeling. Number 2 is too much feeling and overanalyzing, right? And then number 3 is not pairing mindset with action. So either which is kind of both of those, right? Either I'm not going to feel the feeling, so I'm just going to run at action and throw spaghetti and hope I'm doing the right thing because I can't feel my feelings. So I'm just going to go over here in the business and avoid my feelings, right? Or I'm going to avoid the scary stuff in my business that I really don't want to do. So I'm just going to run around here and talk about my feelings for 40 years, right? Obviously, the answer is both and. Obviously, we want to have both. I'm going to give you a few examples of action. These may or may not be your things, but to just give you some examples of how we can take some actions around this. And I'm going to quickly check the comments. And I'm already running over, but I'm going to just keep talking because this is too important. If you have to go, you can catch the replay. I'm not sure I know how to ask this, so it makes sense. Okay. Can you use mindset work to trick your brain? I love the way you're asking this. Can you use mindset work to trick your brain into doing tasks you don't love to do? Oh my God, I kind of love the way that you asked this question. And I also love it because, fun fact, I used to be a hypnotherapist. And when I first started my business, that was my gateway drug back, because I was coaching before, back to coaching and back to working in business. So I was like a life coach and a hypnotherapist for about 1.5 years before I realized I had gone too far down that path, and I actually was the both and yeah. So, and people used to always ask me like, can you just trick me into like liking vegetables or like, whatever. I feel like, honestly, I want to do a whole live on this question. Let me just think if I can answer it briefly. Because the answer is yes and no. I think it's like, there are some great tricks. I think it's about, okay, this is going to be really annoying, but all of you experts know that last time you got a question, you answered it like this. It depends. Right? It just depends. But it depends on the thing that it is, right? So if it's just one isolated task that you're just avoiding because you don't want to, there's some great tricks for that, because it's probably not like a deep-seated related to something any deeper than just you don't wanna. And so if it falls in the category of I don't wanna, Yes. I'll just throw one out. Is it Mel Robbins? She does the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like you're just going to procrastinate and so you just count backwards, you say it. And like, when it's 1, you're just up and freaking doing it. Because otherwise, if you give yourself that out, you will take it. So I like that one. You can Google that one. There's a million more, but that's a great one for just the, like, it's not important why it's being procrastinated on. You're just procrastinating. Do you know what I mean? Or like, you just don't want to do it. Right. I hope this is answering the question. And then I think if it's important, right, if you notice, I'm just going to keep using this because it keeps coming up in my clients this summer. It's not summer, but it's still coming up around your sales process, either reaching out or following up, or even saying like, I told you I would send you this link to my pricing, but I don't send the link to the pricing because I'm scared you're going to say no, or whatever the reason is for not. Sales process is a great, like, juicy place to practice whatever it is that you're working on in mindset. So like, if you want to avoid moving people through your sales process because it's scary or you feel bad or whatever the reason, then you're probably just always going to avoid it. And so the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or any of those like quick tricks and quick hacks for like the other ones, like the unimportant procrastinations, it doesn't really work because your whole body and subconscious mind is like, not just I don't wanna, it's not safe. For some reason, it's not safe. And so it doesn't mean that you need to I'm not a big fan of like, we want to find the balance of the right amount of analyzing ourselves, right? But like, so it doesn't mean that you need to go to therapy for 40 years before you can, like, you know, follow up on the sales process. But if that is a pattern and that is a deep-seated, it kind of makes me sick to think about, then your work is more in finding some baby step actions and some mindset stuff to pair together to help you do the stuff that you don't want to do. Does that help? Okay. Does that answer it? Because you said you didn't know how to ask it. Okay. Okay. So great segue. Thank you. Couple of examples of how to pair your mindset. Yeah, you're welcome. How to pair your mindset with your mindset work with your actions. Let's see. Okay, so I already talked about one, which is not wanting to follow up in your sales process, right? So we want to both process that out with a coach, with a therapist, with a friend, with a colleague, of like what you're scared of, what you think they're going to say, why, what does it mean about you? What do you want? What is like the worst case scenario? Like all these things of just like processing it out. Again, I'm not really trying to talk about how to do that today. And you want to pair it with, it is safe, some sort of action that tells your brain it is safe to reach out to a human and tell them that you want to work with them. That's all it is. Like, right? It's scary, but like, and then how do we just make it safe? How do we decomplicate it? How do we let it be that sort of silly how I said it? Like, how do we just, not that you're going to feel super confident before you take the action. And this is where it is. And this is actually coming full circle to your question in the very beginning about the confidence piece. Like sometimes we build confidence because we freaking do it. And then we have the evidence in tangible, real form for our brains to see, well, it couldn't be too scary because I've already done it once. And if I can do it once, then I can do it twice. And so I'm a big believer in collecting evidence and getting you as much of a tangible, your brain needs some tangible evidence of that action being safe, of you being the person that you want to be, of, you know, and it's about finding that small baby step action or finding that small result that you can land on, right? I was scared to put myself out there in a networking meeting, in a sales call, in a piece of content, but I did it yesterday. And when I'm scared to do it again tomorrow, I'm going to go look at that content piece. And even though it's online, right? Like you can hold up you can look at it. There's some tangibility to it to say, nobody killed me. I didn't die. Everything's okay. I'm safe. I can totally do it again. And that's the true habit change. That's true behavior change. That's true reality change, and gives you those business results that you want on the end, because you took the action to pair with it. Couple of other examples. Oh my gosh, this is a great one. So I have two clients recently who went through launching a new offer. Pretty big, like group wide audit offer. New offer they've never offered before. Both of them treat their businesses very differently. Both of them have very, very different mindset stuff to deal with. And so we approach the launches very differently. And I'm going to keep there's a strategy component to this that I'm going to keep out of it, but just from their mindset perspective, one of them is working on not being such a perfectionist, is really trying to dial some of that back and to trust their team more. And so in their launch, we executed this, helping her work on her mindset while in this launch by not planning every single thing out in advance. Because otherwise that would take another quarter, right? We'd have to finish planning and then execute, right? So teaching her that some of that like less than perfect, like B+, B- even action is frankly what's going to and did generate her results. So we worked on that. And then what was the other piece? Oh, and writing some content, like not having all the content for the whole launch written in advance. That was another big one. So tiny example, but she got so much evidence that here's my business results and here's how I did that launch. And I can actually like tangibly see, here's the things my team did that I didn't have to do because I just stayed out of it. And the things that I'm scared of, it not being perfect, it's not about avoiding it not being perfect or controlling it to be perfect. It's about, can I just handle it on the other end when it's not perfect? Same, different client, different launch. The strategy was different too. But this client, they're working on treating their business more like a serious business. And so we planned. We did a lot more planning than the other client, because that gave them the confidence that they could act like a business owner and have a plan instead of, I don't know, I'll just do whatever I feel like on the day of, right? Not that that's a problem. A lot of people like to launch like that, but this person was truly working on the seriousness and the taking things seriously in their business and not letting things be perfect and over-organized, but letting things be more organized, the exact opposite of this other client. Yes, so we like worked on detailed plans, did some things in advance, talked about forecasting, right? That helped this person's mindset. Oh, and then another fun one. Okay, so this was last week. How do I want to say this without giving it away? So this is another client also working on delegating to their team better and staying out of the controlling piece, because they have expertise that their team is executing on them for. So like they help their clients with some of the stuff that now their team is helping them with. And so that like you can be really dangerous, right? When you know too much. If you don't know how to do something, sometimes it's a little easier to delegate. So they're working on not having so many hats to be wearing, right? Letting their team take things and running with it. And like even letting it, quote, fail to the point so that we can all learn. And so they needed to reach out to some of the people in their pipeline, but their team was setting up the CRM. And so all the data of like people's email addresses and like who was it we were following up with, all that is like in transition. And then this like tech project behind the scenes to set that up. And so they were like, I need to go in there, but I'm trying not to go in there because my team's in there. And now I'm like getting in their space, but I really need those email addresses. And so we basically just talked that whole thing through because they really wanted to just take the project away from their team, right? And then guess what? Then they wouldn't have to do the sales actions because they could just go into the project, right? And so finding that space and realizing where all those pieces were, we kind of came down to, you're allowed to go in there for 5 minutes to pull those email addresses. And then you got to make a separate sheet while your CRM is being set up, right? Make a separate sheet for your pipeline of just what you're going to follow up with for the next week or two until that project is done, right? So like, again, we're being the opposite of perfectionism. We're like half-assed, just grabbing stuff, taking it out of the process, right? But that enabled her to be CEO and her team to be team and execution. right? And so again, these are very simple actions. None of these are rocket science. These are all actions that you're probably already taking in your business. It's not about like, oh, now I have to create some newfangled action in my business. It's really more about what does your business need you to take action on, and what are you avoiding is oftentimes the thing to tell you where your mindset is. But I think like it's about working with both pieces. And on each of these clients, right, we talked through their processing and their own mindset work every day, every week, every whatever, through these thought processes, through these feelings, through their blocks, whatever you want to call it. So they're tackling it on their own. We're tackling it together in coaching, and then they're tackling it on the action end in business. And all of those pieces go together to help you be a happier person, be a more successful business owner, make more money, enjoy your work more, get back to serving your clients and creating your product or whatever it is, the work that you do, so that the behind the scenes piece, and oftentimes it's that behind the scenes piece or the sales process that can really get our brains out of whack. But this is really and truly like, I think so much of the work that I'm doing, and it's what's the word I want to say? It's what I find so often is a client will come back and go, wow, I made that so much more complicated than I needed to. And this one action just gave me like one more tablespoon of confidence, or one more piece of evidence that I can do that, I can delegate, right? One more piece of evidence that I am a business owner that takes their business seriously, that has great results, that makes good money, that serves their client, right? Whatever the thing is that you want to do, the true answer for me anyway always comes back to how can we just put those two together so that you're becoming the person that you want to become. There's a lizard outside on the porch. I don't know if you can see it. So that you can become the business owner that you want to become, create the results that you want to create. And oh, by the way, you're just going to be a happier, more well-adjusted, nervous system regulated person in the process. But I love a good part of the reason I became a business coach was because I love using the business as an opportunity to create those examples, those actions. It's just sitting there for you. Like there's so many opportunities, like whatever it is that you need to practice, your business will benefit from it if you put those two together. Okay, if you are watching the replay, I'm going to close it, but please feel free to reply with any questions that you have, and I'll see you next week for another one. And if you're live, I'm going to just hit stop and you're welcome to ask me a question live.